COVID-19, also known as coronavirus disease 2019, is a contagious respiratory and vascular disease that first spread in Wuhan, China during late December 2019 to early January 2020. This disease has then spread all over the world as a pandemic. One such country is the Philippines. This video will show the first 3 months of the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, starting from late January until April 2020. On January 30, a 38-year-old Chinese woman tested positive for COVID-19 in the Philippines, making her the first confirmed case of the disease in the country. The Research Institute for Tropical Medicine started conducting confirmatory tests for COVID-19. In February 2, the first death due to COVID-19 complications is reported, a 44-year-old Chinese man. This is the first death due to COVID-19 occurring outside the Chinese mainland.
A month later, the fourth and fifth cases were reported. Both are Filipino citizens, making them the first two Filipinos that contracted the disease inside the country. A day later, the fifth case's wife is also confirmed to have the disease. This marked the first local transmission of COVID-19, signaling the Department of Health raised its precautionary alert to code red sub-level 1. On Monday evening, President Rodrigo Duterte formally declared a state of public health emergency in the country. All classes, private and public, were also suspended due to the rising cases of COVID-19. The Department of Trade and Industry also called directives against hoarding and panic buying for retailers in the country. In March 12, amid the rising coronavirus cases in the country, Vice President Lena Robredo addresses the public to adopt working from home, fast-track the process of test kit, and protect the ones vulnerable from the disease. President Duterte also announced a partial lockdown in Metro Manila beginning March 15 at midnight that will cover 16 cities and 1 municipality. Domestic travel to and from NCR will be suspended until April 14, 2020 as Code Sub-Level 2 is raised by the DOH. Mass transportation will continue to operate with social distancing guidelines. March 14, coronavirus cases in the Philippines entered the 100 mark. Oriental Mindoro imposes a voluntary community quarantine. The following day, the Philippine National Police announced that an officer designated to the CIDG died due to COVID-19 complication yesterday. But the test results were only released on March 17. The cities of Davao and Tagum is placed under a partial lockdown alongside the first confirmed case in the region. The next day, President Duterte places Luzon and its neighboring islands such as Bohol under enhanced community quarantine, imposing a lockdown amid rising cases. A 46-year-old Filipino man recovers from COVID-19. The first recovery of a Filipino in the country, with the total recoveries increasing to 3. In March 17, the DOH confirms community transmission of COVID-19 in the Philippines. Meanwhile, President Duterte signed the Proclamation number 929 that places the entire country under the state of calamity due to the coronavirus pandemic. The proclamation brings into effect the price control of basic needs and necessities, hazard pay for frontliners, granting interest-free loans, distribution of calamity fund such as the Social Amelioration Program by the Department of Social Welfare and Development, and the authorization of importation of the nation receipt. Vice President Robredo is also spearheading the fundraising of the personal protective equipment, collecting 17.3 million pesos in total.
In March 18, the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation announced that it will provide 30 billion pesos to provide aid to health facilities and workers to efficiently respond to the coronavirus crisis. After 2 days, President Duterte addresses the public through the House of Representatives of the Philippines to alleviate the spread of COVID-19, citizens and government officials alike. 2 days later, the Malacanang requested to the Congress to give President Duterte emergency powers to control the COVID-19 pandemic in the Philippines. The Senate and the House of Representatives held a session discussing the President's request to be given emergency powers amid the pandemic. Also, President Duterte signs Administrative Order Number 26 granting additional hazard pay for government employees regardless of working status. The Senate approved Senate Bill 1481 or the Wihil as One Act that will grant President Duterte with emergency powers to address the COVID-19 pandemic. The combined version of both upper and lower houses was named Bayanihan to Hills One Act, to be signed by the President thereafter. Furthermore, the COVID-19 cases surpasses the 500 mark along with 19 total recoveries. The following day, President Duterte signs the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act that grants him with 30 additional powers to handle the pandemic and its projected aftermath. The COVID-19 cases passes the 1,000th mark with deaths totaling to 68 and recoveries to 35 on March 28. The next day, Vice President Robredo and various fashion designers are set to mass produce personal protective equipment for frontliners. In March 30, President Duterte and his administration has announced a 200 billion pesos allotment for low-income households affected by the implementation of the lockdown in the country.
First day of April, a group demanding food aid were arrested by the Quezon City Police. President Duterte later ordered soldiers that are patrolling the streets to protect themselves from violent and unruly protesters. April 5, President Duterte signs Administrative Order Number 28 that grants extra allowance to government health workers. A week later, the Philippine government now requires its citizens to disclose personal information about COVID-19 patients as a containing measure. COVID-19 cases enter its 5,000 mark in April 14 with 335 total deaths and 295 total recoveries. President Duterte approves the Small Business Relief Program that gives aid to 1.6 million small businesses and its 3.4 million employees affected by the enhanced community quarantine. In April 20, Philippine Army veteran Winston Ragos was shot dead by the PNP after attempting to pull out a gun and allegedly breaking quarantine protocols. Ragos suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder after having served during the Marawi siege in 2017. 4 days later, another extension of the enhanced community quarantine is announced to take effect until May 15, 2020. For high-risk areas susceptible to COVID-19. Other areas will be under general community quarantine beginning May 1, 2020.